There was a time in my life when I couldn't stand silence. I feared it more than pain. Because when everything went quiet, I could finally hear the noise inside me. I used to fill every second of my day with something: people, screens, music, conversations that meant nothing. I thought movement meant meaning. I thought being surrounded meant being alive. But I was wrong. It started slowly. A few friends drifted away. The messages stopped coming. The nights grew longer. And before I knew it, I was alone, really alone, for the first time in years. At first I hated it. The apartment felt like a cage. The silence pressed on my chest like a weight. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the refrigerator just to feel less empty. I tried to escape it, called people who didn't answer, turned on music just to drown my own thoughts. But no matter what I did, the silence stayed. It followed me like a shadow. And one night, I stopped running. I turned everything off, the lights, the music, the phone, and sat there, just breathing, just listening. At first, all I could hear was chaos, every regret, every wound, every mistake I ever made, screaming in the dark. It felt like drowning in my own mind. But then, something shifted. Beneath all that noise, I heard something else. Something softer. A voice I hadn't heard in years, my own. That's when I realized solitude wasn't punishment. It was a mirror, and I was finally being forced to look. In the beginning, it was brutal. The silence showed me everything I'd avoided. The lies I told myself, the people I hurt, the version of me that existed only for approval. I saw how much of my life had been built on noise, on trying to be seen, to be liked, to be enough. And without it, who was I? That question haunted me. Days turned into weeks. I stopped checking my phone. I started walking without music. I ate dinner without distractions. And for the first time, I could feel the rhythm of life again. The ticking of the clock, the sound of my own breath, the pulse of my heart, steady, patient, alive. Something inside me began to heal. Not all at once, but quietly, like the earth after a storm. The mind I once feared began to open. I started to notice the way sunlight fell on the wall in the morning, the way the air moved when I breathed deeply. Tiny details I'd missed when I was busy trying to escape myself. Solitude, I discovered, is not emptiness, it's depth. It's the place where the soul whispers what the world drowns out. The more time I spent alone, the more I realized how much noise I used to need just to avoid feeling. I used to mistake distraction for peace. Now, I began to understand that peace only comes after you face the noise, not before. I remember one morning, early, cold, quiet. I looked out the window and saw the city waking up. For the first time, I didn't feel separate from it. I wasn't just watching life happen, I was part of it. There was no loneliness in that moment, only presence. That's when it hit me. I had spent years searching for connection outside, when all along it was waiting for me inside. In solitude, my mind became a teacher. It showed me how much of what I called me was just borrowed opinions, fears, desires that never truly belonged to me. Without the noise, those things began to fade. And what remained was something real. The more I listened, the more I understood. The silence wasn't empty, it was full of memories, lessons, and voices I'd silenced long ago. Full of presence, full of God. I began to pray again. Not the kind of prayers I learned as a child, but silent ones. Prayers made of breath, of gratitude, of stillness. And in those moments, I felt something sacred moving through me, like the world was speaking in a language older than words. That's when solitude stopped being my enemy. It became my cathedral. I used to think strength came from noise, from power, control, certainty. But solitude taught me that real strength is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to be seen. It's the kind of strength that comes from knowing who you are when there's no one else around to tell you. There were days I cried, not out of sadness, but release, like something inside me was finally exhaling after years of holding its breath. I forgave people who never apologized. I let go of things I couldn't change, and I stopped begging life to be what it was before. The silence taught me acceptance. It taught me surrender, and through surrender, it taught me peace. Weeks passed. I started writing again, not for anyone else, just for myself. The words felt different now. They didn't come from ambition or ego. They came from truth, from the stillness I had found inside me. I realized then why the prophets, the saints, the mystics, why they all retreated into the wilderness, the desert, the mountains. They weren't escaping the world. They were meeting God in the only place He can be found within. And so was I in solitude. I discovered that I was never truly alone, because the deeper I went into the silence, the more I felt the presence of something infinite. It wasn't loneliness anymore, it was communion. Every time I sat in stillness, I could feel it, the universe breathing with me. The stars, the wind, the sound of the earth turning, all part of the same rhythm. And I was part of it too. I began to change. The world still looked the same, but I didn't move through it the same way. I spoke less, but meant every word. I walked slower, but noticed more. I stopped needing validation, because solitude had already validated my existence. And that's the paradox. When you stop trying to prove your worth, you finally feel it. Solitude sharpened my perception. It made me selective. I no longer wanted to fill space. I wanted to fill meaning. I started to see people differently. Not everyone deserved access to my energy. Not every voice deserved a response. Not every battle was mine to fight. I found clarity, and with it came peace. The world around me didn't change, but I did, and that changed everything. Now, I no longer fear silence. I crave it, because it's in silence that I hear the truth of who I am. It's in solitude that I remember what matters. I no longer chase. I no longer perform. I simply am. And when I return to the noise of the world, I carry the quiet with me. It's my compass, my anchor, my strength. So if you ever find yourself in that same silence, that heavy, unbearable, quiet, don't run, stay. Listen, because solitude is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is the sacred fire that burns away illusion, so that truth can finally stand in the open. And when it's done, when the last echo fades, and you emerge from the silence, you'll realize something profound. You were never truly alone. You were simply meeting yourself for the first time, and that is what solitude teaches the mind. That is what silence reveals to the soul.